Welcome to Spectrum Days, the podcast where we ruin our childhood memories of games we used to play with me, Chris, and my cousin Phil.
Hello.
What game are we going to try and remember today, Phil?
Oh, please be a good one. The Revenge of Shinobi. Well, that's what we called it over here anyway.
Yeah, this will be great, right?
Yeah, guaranteed. This is the one.
They will have learned about difficulty balancing by now.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this wasn't. Was this a launch title for the Mega Drive?
That's the trouble. Sadly for us over here in the UK, yeah, it was. I mean, it was everywhere really. But by the time we got the Mega Drive, yeah, it was out the day the Mega Drive came out. So end of 1990, something like that.
So early days. So this is making me a bit worried already. That it's going to be very difficult to play.
Yeah. Sadly, I think actually, if people outside of the UK, if they want to let us know, because it's been quite hard to find out exact dates and things. Was this a game that came out in the US and Japan the day that the Mega Drive or the Genesis came out? Certainly over here in the UK, because we were a bit behind, as we still are with most things. We didn't get the Mega Drive till end of 1990, I believe, although some people got it on import, obviously. And as far as I can tell from looking in the wonderful Mean Machines magazine, it's saying that the game came out in October, and one or two of us here, including our lovely producer, seems to remember getting the game at Christmas. So yeah, if anyone knows any better than that, do let us know, because this whole first part of this podcast is us trying to remember things badly, mainly badly, and then later on we will take a pause, play the game, and then come back and tell you how much we hate it. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time, though.
But at least you jogged your memory with a magazine. You've got the original magazine in your hands.
Yeah, so this is actually issue 1. You've got issue 1 of Mean Machines here. Forgive me if you hear paper shuffling in the background. And it is, it's one of the first reviews in it, not surprisingly, because it's the first magazine, and saying that the Mega Drive had just come out, and such an anticipated game. Not surprising, because it got 94%. Presentation got 95%, graphics 91%, sound 94%, playability 95%, lastability 90% because it's hard. And in fact, their comment is lastability 90%. The game seems never ending, and the multiple skill levels add plenty of long-lasting appeal. Long-lasting appeal. Take note, everybody, of that long-lasting appeal. And the other thing, I do rather fortunately have this game. I do, as I think we've mentioned in other podcasts, I do collect games, but I only collect ones that I like, which is rather worrying that this is one of the ones that I do have, and I adore this game. I've got it in my hand as we speak, a rather nice copy of it, still with the hand tab and everything, and the instructions. And in fact, I think just to give everyone an idea of what this game is about, I should read from the I miss instruction books. Anyway, this is what it says. It actually in the instructions here: the Revenge of Shinobi, which is actually in other territories, I think only in Japan, was called Super Shinobi. And if you load up the game, I believe that the screen does actually still say Super Shinobi rather than the Revenge of Shinobi. But anyway, we'll get to that in a bit. In the impenetrable mountain hideaways of Japan exist mystic warriors, the ninja. These masters of battle possess seemingly impossible powers. Yeah, they'd have to, because it's so flipping hard. In combat, they leap to dazzling heights. When hit, they remain unhurt. Yeah, right. They can summon fire from the sky to torch the enemy. You studied ninja ways since you were small in the dojo, brackets school, because none of us knew what dojo was back then. And we weren't allowed to say ninja back then. I think we've mentioned this before. We had Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. So it began as the weakest one, and anyone could overcome you. But every day you practiced and meditated. At last you mastered the skills of leaping, somersaulting, and throwing the deadly shuriken. I won't go on, but basically, you are Joe Musashi, good old Joe, and it's a follow-up. I mean, it's bizarre that this game isn't called Shinobi 2. It should be, really, because bizarrely there is a Shinobi 3 which came out on the Mega Drive not too long after this one, but this is a follow-up to Shinobi, which was an arcade game and also had a good conversion on the Master System. I expect most of us here probably remember that, but for some reason this particular version, it wasn't an arcade game. This was specifically purpose built for the Mega Drive.
Right. So there'll be no excuse about this being really, really hard because it was just to earn more money at the arcade.
Yeah,
right?
you can't use that excuse.
The developers knew that, right?
Yeah, you cannot use that excuse. In fact, I think I did find something about that somewhere where they, I think it was the director. I'm going to murder his Japanese name now. Forgive me. Noriyoshi Oba was the director who headed up Overworks, which is a division over at Sega. And they worked on things like Wonder Boy and Monsterland and other things like that. And I think it was sort of Team Shinobi. They were the sort of the people that were making the Shinobi games. That director wanted to make the game specifically specifically hard. Yeah, he did actually say that it wanted to be challenging, but that it wanted to show off the Mega Drive / Genesis, because all the other games were basically arcade ports. So although this was a game based on arcade lineage, it wasn't an arcade game. He very much intended it to be showing off the Mega Drive to its full potential, which is why we got quality of life things, as I think they'd probably call them now, a life bar. So instead of just one hit and you're dead sort of thing. So there is certainly, it's fairer in that sense. And you've got quite a lot of ability to change the game at the beginning in the options. I think there's difficulty levels. Again, this is from memory, or even though I've got the instruction book here, I could look it up.
Is there a practice difficulty?
I don't think there's practice. No, I don't think it mocks you with practice, but there is difficulty levels, and you can change the number of shurikens that you're assigned with. I suppose you should point out what type of game it is. I suppose back then we'd call it platform action arcade, even though it wasn't an arcade game. Now I don't know what you'd call it nowadays if it's got released now. I suppose still platform. It'd probably get called retro if it got released now. But
because if you talk about platform, you think more of like running and jumping, Mario-esque kind of platformer, right? But this is slower than that. It's more about different levels of height for killing other enemies. Kind of, if I remember the game, it's much slower than Ghouls and Ghosts. Is it? It's not.
Well, you're never running as such. No, I mean it's more ninjaing if that's a term.
Ninjaing in a white ninja suit, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to blend into the background with a white ninja suit.
I think it might just simply been programming decisions. I'm not so sure it equates to the real world of ninjaing, which I know an awful lot about. But what is wrong with Sega? They got no ideas of their own. They stole Spider-Man, Batman, Jackie Chan, Terminator, and me, the mighty Sonny Chiba. And what do they get wrong? The outfit. I mean, look. Is it not bleeding obvious what colour a ninja's outfit should be? Look at it. It's flipping obvious. Come on. Shinobi. Ha. I completed it.
Ninjas were so popular back then. They aren't quite so popular anymore, are they?
Hack and slash. That's the term I was grappling for. Hack and slash. That's what we'd have called it. Yes, platform hack and slash type game. That's the one. Yeah, so there was magic involved. So you had magic as a sort of like a super bomb that you had in sort of certain games, but in this it was magic that could make you invincible or make fire appear on the screen. Or I can't remember all of them. I'm sure when we play it, they'll all come back to me. It did so well in the magazines. Like I say, I've got the Mean Machines one here. We all wanted it. and I in my notes here, I wrote down, because I suddenly remembered those days, because I think we mentioned before, I used to work in the second-hand market selling this sort of stuff. It was a game that you never saw, because even though the market, we started selling games by about sort of 92, so the Mega Drive had been out for a couple of years by then, but it was a game that everybody had and everyone kept it. Unlike when we looked at, I think we looked at Altered Beast in one of our preparations for doing these podcasts. We never actually released that one, but we talked about Altered Beast, and that was a game that everyone just wanted to get rid of. They got given it with the machine and wanted to get rid of it. But this game, everyone kept it. Partly because it was so challenging. It wasn't hard. It was challenging. That's the word. It was very challenging. It was last ability, 90% Mean Machines, 1990. It was a game that everyone kept because it was so good, and you could play it over again and again. They're quite right. You could keep playing it. It was that good, or certainly my memories of it are. We'll soon see how wrong I'm going to be.
I'm already so jaded.
Well, 3 podcasts in, and you hate gaming
with this whole concept. I mean, you could keep playing it again and again and again. Yeah, right.
Join us next week on Knitting Monthly.
You know that the enemy patterns are going to be just the same repetition, but just really, really difficult, right? There's no, it's an arcade game, although it wasn't in the arcade, but it's an arcade style game, and it's going to be about enemies appearing on the screen in exactly the same order, and you having to time your jumps and your shuriken shots as to perfection to be able to progress.
Yeah, but it also at the same time, it wasn't just hammering buttons like Altered Beast in a blind sort of flurry. It's a thoughtful game, which we hadn't had. Just think about this. We hadn't had it. Thinking back to them, we hadn't had this sort of game. It just didn't exist. People might say, "Oh, you had Last Ninja on the Commodore." No, it was nothing like that. It had the arcade tropes. Either you did have speed, great graphics. It looked beautiful. It is, and it still does. I mean, I'm looking at the magazine here. Yeah, it's beautiful, and it was very, very smooth. It all moved very, very smoothly, and the music was absolutely incredible. He had a brilliant opening scene with a sort of animated ninja using his sword to block off a shuriken. I can see that now in my head. I can see that opener. It was a very, very exciting game. There really was nothing else like it, and it remained for a long time one of the best games on the Mega Drive. And it was one of the few games that Sega brought out again and again and again within the lifespan of the Mega Drive. I don't mean the ports that have come out now, and it never made it onto anything else. It got onto, I think, the Megatech machine, which was the arcade version of the Mega Drive, which I actually never ever saw. I don't think I ever saw it. It was a bit like the Play Choice 10 on the Nintendo. It's sort of a Mega Drive, but just in an arcade that you could put 10p's in to play this game. So it only ever existed on the Mega Drive. It never went anywhere else. But when the Mega Games pack came out, I don't even remember Mega Games, which is where they repackaged a load of games, which is sort of the first time that was sort of really happening in the console world. And you buy, I think it was 3 games on one. You had Revenge of Shinobi, Golden Axe, and something else. And then there was another Mega Games pack, which was Columns, Super Monaco, and World Cup Italia 90 or something, which was dreadful, and we saw all the time because it was terrible. It was 3 terrible. So you go, here, have 3 crap games, and you can just have these. But the other
were they?
Go on.
Were they three games on one cartridge?
Yeah. But the other one, so it was Mega Games 1 and Mega Games 2. I think there was a Mega Games 3 eventually, but those first 2, you see that, Shinobi and Golden Axe, and I can't remember the other one, they were basically being then given away. So people were getting Sonic and probably Mega Games 2 or something like that. But we never saw that. It never came back. It was really sought after. So this game has always been rare in the sense that it was always sought after and people never got rid of it. Apart from me, because obviously the copy I've got is one I bought recently and I haven't got my original one. So that's kind of ruined that theory. Someone must have got rid of it. But at the time, it was never on the shelf, and it never stayed on the shelf if it ever did come in. And it's held its value. I note here in Mean Machines, new price then, $34.99. And I think I paid not far off that for the rather nice copy I've got of it just a couple of years ago on flipping eBay. It's just not fair. I'm buying all this stuff back again. I don't know why I ever sold it. Although I might find that out when we play it.
Yeah, but and they've never made any follow-ups, right? I mean, you said there was a third, but there's never been a kind of modern Shinobi remake or continuation.
Yes and no. For the purposes of this podcast, I didn't bother researching much beyond this one game, and because it was a Mega Drive game, that's the one we're looking at. From memory, yeah, I think it might have made the leap eventually, but in general, and this is something I was going to say, it was in the notes that Sega sort of dumped Shinobi. It's sort of become a series that's sort of synonymous with back then, sort of 2D Sega era. And never, I don't recall it making a successful leap into the 3D world. I don't know why they've never returned to it. Really, and I'm sure this will probably cause some arguments, but the general feeling is that Shinobi 3 on the Mega Drive is one of the best games ever made on the Mega Drive, and is extremely expensive. There's no way I'll be buying that. I can't remember what it's going for at the moment, but silly money, because it came out quite late, I think, in the Mega Drive's life anyway. I'm not even sure we got it over here in the UK, but it certainly came out, I think, in Japan and the US, as far as I know. Someone can let us know if I've got that wrong. So it's one of those games. It's one of those series, I should say, that I'm amazed no one's really picked up and made something of again. The fact that sort of 2D and pixel art stuff has become so popular, I'm surprised that it hasn't. I mean, the series has appeared in other ways. Yuzo Koshiro's music, who vaguely mentioned earlier on, who went on to do the stuff on Streets of Rage and is regarded as one of the best creators of music for consoles in general. It was only a few years ago his music got played at a sort of classical concert of game music, and I think he actually did the arranging for the music, and Revenge of Shinobi was the one that even then got played in the encore. So it's got this huge following for Shinobi. So I'm amazed it hasn't got picked up and a whole load more games made for it recently. I'm staggered. Perhaps they will now that we've said it. I'm sure Sega are listening. Probably. Please make another Shinobi.
You say that now. You haven't played this one, have you?
I mean, as far as my memory of playing it, it was classic round at a mate's house. He got it, I think, probably with the Mega Drive. I think at the same time he got Golden Axe. So it would have been this and Golden Axe that we were playing, which is just phenomenal to think back that that's what we were playing. And those were both two games that remained very popular throughout its life. The Mega Drive was remarkably blessed with a handful of really good games upon its release that remained popular and showed up the other games that got made. The technicality, the production, the artwork, the design, the level design, the complexity of Revenge of Shinobi is so much higher than a lot of what then came after on the Mega Drive, which still amazes me to this day, really, that you release games usually look terrible in hindsight. A few years on, they usually look terrible, quickly produced, or but I don't know, for some reason this one I think stood the test of time in my memory.
Yeah. Phil, what version do you think we had in the UK? Because I was looking online, preparing for this, and there seemed to be a few different versions. and they seem to have some problems with licensing for different characters.
Yeah, it's all a bit weird. Knowing what version you got is technically quite difficult thing to do, but some versions are worth more than others. I certainly know that, but that's only in hindsight, not at the time. I don't think any of us even realised. It is quite odd, and it's quite unusual, certainly for cartridge-based games, to get revisions. I can actually only think of one or two others. One of the more famous ones, I think, was Mario 64. That got a revision, but I think one or two revisions. Sometimes you got different variations, obviously, through countries. So you might have the Japanese version or whatever. But actually within the same territory, that was pretty unusual. I'm not going to pretend that I know all this, but going by information on the good old internet, software revision 1.00 came out in 1989. Obviously, technically, that's not when we got it. We got it in 1990. So the very first one, there were characters resembling Rambo that was called Rocky. I love that. That's just hilarious.
What a coincidence.
That'll confuse them. Let's change his name to Rocky. No one will know. Jackie Chan, the Terminator, that was called Hercules, and Japan, Master Attacker in the West, Spider-Man, Batman, Godzilla, called Monster G, were present. Both Spider-Man and Batman are actually fake representations of the characters, conducted by a shapeshifter named Metamorpher, who alters his appearance after sustaining a certain amount of damage. I don't think that was done so that if it ever went to court, they could just say that, no, the character is pretending. So he's just dressed up as Batman and Spider-Man. You can't sue us, Gov. I assume that's not why they did it. Additionally, Joe Musashi's face on the title sequence resembled that of the actor Sonny Chiba, who was a action star sort of before sort of Jackie Chan and people like that. He was a famous sort of kung fu guy. I got vague memories that I did know that, so that must have been something that came up in a magazine or something. I'm vaguely aware of that. The next revision, again 1989, the fake Spider-Man is now redesigned into the licensed character from Marvel Comics. Since he's now the real Spider-Man, he does not morph into Batman. Instead, I mean, this is just so convoluted. We're only on the second one. Instead, Spider-Man leaves the battle when enough damage is inflicted, and Batman is replaced by a winged devil man-like creature. Monster G remains unmodified, which is the sort of Godzilla-looking character. It goes on and on.
So why did Marvel let Spider-Man be used then as a kind of enemy, right? As a bad guy?
Well, it's because I say there's then several revisions after this. If people are interested, they can feel free to look it up if you want to. There's about 4, I think maybe 5 revisions as far as the Sega Mega Drive goes, or the Genesis. There were then lots more revisions because it's obviously then been released. Like our producer has been playing it on Steam, which if when we get to the section where people can join along and play with us, go and get it on Steam. It's 79p for crying out loud. It's worth it just to give it a go. That's obviously been altered. The version that came out on the Wii, I think that got altered. So a few of the ports of it subsequently have been altered, and I think all these characters have been removed as far as I understand. But back then, Sega had the license to Spider-Man because they'd made a Spider-Man game, so they were able to include it in there. I think the same was for, I think, possibly the Terminator sort of character, and one or two of the others. They actually, by chance, had already made games, so were able to license them to themselves and include them in the game. But the reason they were there, I mean, this is where it gets completely ridiculous. The guy that we mentioned earlier on, whose name I'm not going to try and murder again, the Japanese director, wasn't very good at drawing. So he knew what sort of character he wanted for end-of-level bosses. So he drew, Spider-Man or Batman or whatever. and naively, I would say naively assumed that the art people were going to go, oh, I see, he wants something like this. I will create a new character. No, they just said, oh, he's drawn Spider-Man. I will make it look more like Spider-Man. Oh, he's drawn Batman. I will make it look more like Batman. That's obviously what he wants. So that's how it happened, because that's what he drew. Isn't that great?
I don't think that would hold up in court.
No, I don't think it would either. But there was no point. As I say, as it was, Sega didn't need to. All Sega needed to do was go, well, actually, we better make it look more like Spider-Man and say that it is. Because then what they did, all they needed to then do was put in so there's another, you'll know which version you've got of this one, because in the title screen where it said Yuzo Koshiro did the music, which is underneath the main thing where the Joe Musashi character comes up on the screen, it will say Yuzo Koshiro. I think they've moved it over or made it smaller and have put in licensing blah 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 Marvel Spider-Man. So you'll know if you've got that version, because it will actually say Spider-Man at the beginning. So they kind of they were able to sort it out themselves.
You can't be sure, Phil. I think you need to get to the shape-shifting end of level boss to work out which version you've got. That is your challenge. When you play it, you need to get at least as far as that.
Yeah,
you need to confirm what version you've got.
Steam, it won't have anyone in it. It'll just have a sort of generic
character. You've got the cartridge. You've got the cartridge. You've got that cartridge. I want to know what character you've got on that particular cartridge.
No.
So maybe it's time for us to go and play now.
Okay, let's do it.
let's do it.
Please don't let it ruin our childhoods. Not this time. Not Shinobi. If anyone wants to join in, please do press pause now. You'll see pause on the screen if you're watching it on YouTube. Go off and have a quick go on it. I will put the link to Steam below. They're not sponsoring us, but hey, chuck 'em 79p. And you can join in and commiserate with us, or sing in joy at the delight of how good Revenge of Shinobi is. And we're back. Thank you for those of you who pressed pause and played along with the game. Those of you who didn't, don't panic. Me and Chris are about to give you our opinion. Our memories have already faded, and now we're into the cold, hard reality of actually having played the blooming game. So we're going to tell you what we thought. Even producer John had a go on it, although I think secretly he used the rewind function, making it a lot easier for him, where it was miserable and hard for us, wasn't it, Chris? Do tell me how miserable and hard you found Shinobi.
It was pretty miserable and pretty hard. It's funny because actually the first few minutes I played and I thought, yes, this is it. We found a good one. The first few seconds of the game, you think you're not dead, right? The first few seconds you can survive. Nothing kills you. In fact, I think if you just leave the game, there's a ninja on the first screen who doesn't even throw, until you walk into his range, won't even throw a throwing star at you. So it's kind of relaxed. It felt like, yes, this is it. We found a game where the designers had thought about difficulty. And then you take that first step forward, and that's about it, really. It's gone. It becomes incredibly difficult. Well, no, it's the first level. The first level's good. The first chapter was good. It's until you get to the really jumpy bits, which annoyed me.
Did you actually remember it? Did you think I know how to play this? I could, I know we talked obviously about that in the first half, but when you got that controller in your hand, you got the game on, was it like, oh yeah, I remember this?
No, the first button I pressed was the magic, so I wasted the magic immediately.
One magic you get,
that wasted that immediately. No, really, John, in our household, John had the Mega Drive. So producer John had the Mega Drive. This would have been his game. I think he's told us off mic that he remembers having it for Christmas. So I think if I played it, I didn't get to play it too much, and it would have always been like me begging, could I get a game? So no, and could you remember it?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I mentioned in the first half of the podcast, it is a game that I've got on physical for my Mega Drive, my real, genuine Mega Drive. So yeah, I probably bought that. I'm going to guess probably 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. That I bought that game again, I should say. And so I put it in the machine and basically tested it. And I think I probably played the first level or something like that. I bought a bunch of games, so I didn't sort of carry on playing it. So this, having to sit down, and for those of you who don't know, we do have a YouTube channel where this will appear, and I do record the footage of me playing it for the channel. So of course, because I was recording the footage, it meant I had to play it in earnest and sit there and get as far as I can. So whilst we waffle on about the game, there's actually something for you people to look at. So I on this playthrough, I got to level 4 before I got through my 3 continues and all my lives, and chapter 4, and wanted to give up on life, really.
So with the continues, that's an annoying thing, right? When you continue, you don't always continue from where I think you should continue.
No, you go right back to the beginning of the chapter, don't you?
Right back to the beginning of the chapter. What a waste of a continue. I mean, what kind of continue design is that? you're fighting the boss, die, continue. Oh, go back to the beginning of the chapter.
And again, you summed up Shinobi. This is sounding very similar to Ghouls and Ghosts and
Why did they make these games so difficult? I don't understand how teenagers back in in the 90s, whatever, how did we put up with this sort of stuff?
Well, I think
did we have a lot more patience? I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we did. I think we must have done, mate. We have got to the stage where we're old, grumpy men. I think although we bemoan the fact that we can't go down Blockbusters or our local video store and spend an hour choosing a video, we do now rather like that we can sit on our comfy chair, because none of us can use sofas anymore. We've got to have our own individual chair and sit there with our phone and choose a video off an app in 2 seconds and it appears on the screen. I mean, we do like that. I think we do like the modern world. And, you know, as kids back then, we wanted to play the latest thing, and we still are that way. We still do want to play the latest thing, the latest game. I think secretly going back and playing these old games, it's just a waste of time.
Every minute, I was thinking, I could just go and play Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
In fact, I went off and played FIFA 2023. But yeah, I was playing and I didn't use rewinds like producer John did, so I obviously didn't even get past chapter 2.
Explain why. Explain why. I'm very intrigued as to what was it about chapter 2 that you couldn't get past, Chris? Do tell.
Those stupid logs.
Was it the logs?
They have some stupid vertical logs. There's a moment. This is another annoying aspect of Shinobi where they have leaps of faith. There are moments where you have to jump off the screen, or what you can see on the screen, to jump onto a log, which is so at the beginning there is a waterfall. So chapter 2 is Shinobi meets the ninja. Our character meets the Batman, or various flying ninjas with Batman-like wings, with the backdrop being a waterfall. So that induces a headache immediately. I mean, the blue animated waterfall, that first of all really sets you up with a nice headache. So you're not always in the best shape when it gets to third way through that chapter. You have to jump. You have to go up the waterfall. And the only way to go up the waterfall, of course, is to jump on a log, which is dropping down the waterfall, and then do a double jump onto another log to then be able to access another higher platform.
Oh, yes, here we go, blaming the inanimate objects. I mean, these are the things that programmers put into computer games. We are just simple forest folk. We can't be blamed for your ineptitude with the control pad, can we? I mean, look at Brian there. He's having fun going up and down. Hello! Yes, you see? I mean, there's nothing wrong with his waterfall. I think it's rather pretty. It doesn't disturb my mind or anything. Hasn't sent Brian doolally or anything. So stop blaming us logs. Just practice the game a bit more. I mean, it's only Shinobi. I've completed it. I think you ought to explain the double jump in some detail.
The double jump. Could you explain the double jump, please?
Do you want me to?
Because you've done it more. You've done it more often than me.
It's a very cruel mechanic. It's one of those mechanics that actually you want in a game. The games that introduced double jumps are great. A jump where you can actually get a little bit of extra distance. I think people will be particularly familiar with this and think fondly of it from something like I was just going to say the Mario series. I think is it Peach or whatever in Mario 2. She could sort of fly a bit, or Yoshi has got his flutter jump. So if you sort of hold jump, they sort of fly a little bit and then sort of land. So you get this sort of extra bit of jump. But this one, for some reason, you've got your sort of normal jump. You can hold the button, you can jump quite high. It's quite a nice jump. It's quite a controllable jump. It's not quite as controllable as Mario. It's a good jump. As jumps go in games, it's a good jump. It's a good jump. But you have to, and it's a mechanic you have to learn. It's not, you can't just think, no, I'm not going to bother with that. You have to actually do the double jump. And it's just at the top. It's at the very top of your normal jump. You hold the button and then you got to press it again at the right time. And what happens? You go out the top of the screen and you can't see him when he goes out the top of the screen. So you don't know whether you're doing the double jump or not, and you fall down a trap. And they deliberately set holes and traps and ledges just at the point where you need to do a double jump, that if you the fucking double jump up, you will fall down the smegging hole and die and scream, pull your hair out.
And if you press the fire button whilst you're doing the double, because the double jump turns into more of a kind of spinny somersault.
Yeah.
So then you press the fire button whilst you're doing that, and you'll throw, or in my opinion, waste about 6 thrown stars.
All your shurikens.
Yeah. So you're throwing. Well, actually, he uses little knives, right? Yeah. So, by the way, everyone, you run out of those knives. So you only start with. There's a finite number of knives that you've got that you need to throw at people, and if you run out of them, then you have to get up close to everyone and get them with your dagger or your sword, which
is hard.
Yeah. But before I forget, so the whole thing about I couldn't get off chapter 2 is there's a moment where you have to go up a waterfall by jumping on a log, doing a double jump off, and then getting to a higher ledge. So that really annoys me because you only get a hint at the beginning with a little arrow saying up. So you know you've got to go up the waterfall, but really the first few times you're just making a leap of faith. So I don't know. I just can't imagine what I would have been like then as a teenager going, what have I got to do now? I just leap off. Luckily, you might find what you're meant to do, or a mate's told you, or a magazine told you. I don't know. It's just trial and error. All these trial and error moments in these games must have been frustrating because they're frustrating for me now. I don't think you get so many trial and error moments in games nowadays.
No, the leap of faith is quite specific. I don't know whether people know that phrase, but it just means that you get to a ledge or an edge of a cliff or a building, and you then cannot see what you're supposed to jump onto, be that jumping up like the ledge that Chris is talking about, or jumping down. And sometimes it might just be that you just walk off the edge and it's just road or another building below you, but you can't see it, so you've got no idea what you're jumping into whatsoever. That's basically what we mean by leap of faith.
Yeah, I bet when we play Manic Miner, they won't have any of those.
Yeah.
Jumping was sorted in Magic
Miner. I'd rather we played Magic Miner, actually. Hey up there, think of a number between 1 and 10. That's it, got it in your mind. Don't tell me. 7. Did I get it? I'm a right magic miner. I don't,
in Manic Miner
really
and Jet Set Willy. On the Spectrum,
Please,
this
no.
was sorted already. On the Spectrum,
Oh, God, no.
jumping, I'm sure Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy had this all sorted before Shinobi.
No, we're not playing either of those. I don't care if we're called Spectrum Days and those games were great at the time. No, I'm not, not playing those.
They were good platforms.
Oh, God, or Monty Mole or Monty on the Run or... No.
So there is a moment then, once you get past that first leap of faith, there's another
Explain
moment
that log, though. That's the easy one, isn't it? Because that log is
the easy one.
Nice and horizontal, isn't it? It's a nice big log.
So it's the vertical logs you got to be careful. There's a leap of faith onto 3 vertical logs.
Sodding logs.
The vertical logs floating down the waterfall. You have to leap onto them, double somersault off of each of those onto a platform where there'll be a ninja or every time I tried it, I'd just land on the platform where I needed to get, and I would immediately be hit and then thrown off. Because when you get hit, you get pushed back. So that would be really, really, really irritating. You jump onto something, get hit, push back, and fall down a big gap. Game over.
I think you need to explain that being pushed back in some detail, Chris.
So every time you get hit and you lose, so you have an energy bar. Every time you get hit, you lose a little bit of energy. You're invulnerable or invincible, for a moment, but you always get knocked back. So often you'll be knocked back into some bamboo, which then as soon as your invincibility runs out, then you'll lose another bit of health because you're on top of the bamboo, or you just get knocked back down through a gap and fall through and game over.
Instant death.
So and instant death. And then you just have to start from the chapter unless you use the rewind feature.
Who would do that?
If you bought it on Steam for 79 UK pence, which is a bargain.
Who would play it like that?
I don't know. But I also found I played it also on iOS, which does also have the rewind feature.
Does it?
But since you've got a virtual joypad, I think it's kind of almost allowed. But to use the rewind feature on the iOS version, you have to watch a 15-second advert, unless you've paid. You can turn that off by paying for it. But the version on the iPhone was not bad actually, considering it's got a virtual joypad, which are generally not great because you don't have any feedback. But it's okay.
Well, that's interesting.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
If you really do want to play, get it on Steam, 79 pence.
That's just
or
really
have a go
good.
on your phone.
They're basically giving it away for 79p. I don't quite understand that. I think that's really good. I know we're absolutely mullering this game, but it's still very good. I really enjoyed it. Like I say, I got past the terrible logs, and I think partly because I'd remembered, and this is interesting, goes back to what Chris asked earlier on, and whether I sort of remembered it or whether I asked that, I can't remember now. See, that's how bad my memory is. I can't remember which one of us asked about, can you remember it?
I can't remember.
What are we doing? Getting past those logs, the upright logs at the end of the sort of second level or towards it. I mean, in fact, it's not even the end of the second level, is it? There's just one part of the second chapter. There is magic that allows you to jump higher, and I seem to remember getting a text from Chris at some 3 o'clock in the morning or something talking about the damn logs, and I did suggest to him, has he not tried using the magic that allows you to jump higher?
Yeah, but I'm so bad at playing these games that I would go through the level, kill all the ninjas, collect all the boxes, get to the point where I needed to use the magic. Then I'd either press the magic button and forget, and I'd use the default magic, which is pretty pointless at that point. It's not.
Oh, it's sort of invincibility, isn't it? The default, I think.
Yeah, invincibility. Yeah. Default is invincibility, which I did need to use also to defeat the big boss on chapter 1.
Yeah,
I needed to use that because that was annoying as well. Because to defeat the boss on chapter 1, you can only hit him with your throwing knife once he's attempted to hit you. That's when he drops his guard. So then you've got to quickly jump straight back. You've got to jump up and throw your knife.
Sort of hit him in the head.
Or
that's right. Yeah.
hit him in the head. Hit him in the head, yeah. Or you use the magic and just rush him and stab him as many times as you can up close. So I would use the magic, stab him up close. But yeah, the jumping magic, I would get to the moment where I needed to use the jumping magic, and then I would press the magic button using the wrong magic, and it would be, oh God. Then I'd have to start again because I would just fail at the log. Or I would go through the level, get to that point, change to the right magic, but then jump without activating the magic, and then I would die. So then I'd have to do it all again. I mean, if you had some kind of rewind feature,
that would be helpful,
some people
wouldn't it? That would
it
really help
really
you
useful,
get quite far in the game, wouldn't it? If you could do that.
Yeah, rewind or save. Or something
I must
like
admit,
that.
actually saying save, as you were mentioning about trying out on the mobile version, the version that everyone's probably watching now, if they're watching on YouTube, and that I played it on, was the Mega Drive Mini 2, which has just been released, which I was going to say foolishly bought, no, but I actually kind of like it. It's actually pretty cool. But I thought I might as well use that to record the footage. As I say, I have got the original hardware to play the game, but I thought, no, I might as well use the opportunity. So if you're watching it, you're watching the version on the Mega Drive Mini 2. I'm surprised this wasn't on the first Mega Drive, actually. I don't know quite why it wasn't, but it's on there along with Shadow Dancer, the other Shinobi game, which I think was an arcade one. This one, the Revenge of Shinobi, the one we're talking about, wasn't an arcade one. It's specifically made for the Mega Drive. But yeah, that the functions on I don't think it's got a rewind. Someone can tell me if it has, but what it has got is obviously a save state, and they've put it as a sort of shoulder button on the controller. You get the 6-button controller with the Mega Drive Mini 2, which is actually, it's quite nice. It's quite funny. I don't remember liking it back in the day, and I didn't like remembering the actual hardware revision of the Mega Drive 2. I didn't particularly like it. I still think the Mega Drive is probably the best looking of all consoles ever. I think it's completely iconic. But you've got a sort of shoulder button, which is a mode button, which does allow you to stop in game and save state. So in a way, when you got to the logs, you could have saved, tried it, died, and restarted from your save file. So you could have done it that way using the Mega Drive.
So you're talking like you didn't do that?
No, I didn't. And people will see that I didn't. They're watching the footage because it's completely seamless and there are no gaps whatsoever or editing techniques used in any way. No, I tell you what, if I had been using that, I'd have got a lot further than level 4. I would have carried on because I really wanted to get as much footage, obviously, for the video as possible. And I'd like to show people the other levels. And I did look up whether there was a level select to be able to sort of just cheat and show some of the other levels. But I couldn't find one. There are cheats, though, that were built into the original game. There are sort of infinite lives, infinite shurikens that you can get. I think if you go into the settings, I don't know whether you realise this, Chris, you could have put it on easy. Have you been playing it on normal this whole time?
Yeah, and then I did change to easy. But
did that help?
What was the difference?
What was the difference? That answers that question then. What was the difference? Okay, fair enough. Did you give yourself 100 shurikens?
Yeah, I did.
And that didn't help?
As well.
Wow, this is really the wrong podcast.
It's the jumping.
I think you should be the producer and John should be talking to me. At least he can get somewhere. I don't care if he cheats. At least he can talk to me about the game. You got to the logs and that's it. So far, people listening to the podcast think, what a rubbish game. It's got 2 levels. And then you just get to some logs.
There's some creaky doors.
What creaky doors? There aren't any creaky. You said this off mic. There are no creaky doors. It's not an enemy.
There are.
The main feature.
When you go in chapter 1, when you go underneath the house.
You know chapter 1 quite well, don't you?
Yeah. When you go underneath the house, there's the first creaky door where the ninjas come out in a puff of smoke, and 5 ninjas come out. 5.
5?
And yeah, and if you crouch down by that creaky door and they come out, you can get them with your sword and save your throwing knives. But don't you hear the kind of like?
So, have I left my Mega Drive on? I think it's.
All right.
It was like being there, wasn't it, everybody? That was good. Do the shuriken noise.
I can't do it.
You do.
You don't have shuriken. Only the enemies have shurikens. You got knives, right?
Oh, is it? Well, I don't know. Why does it say shurikens in the thing then?
You're right.
Just so
sure?
Everyone can get the infinite shurikens, you go into the settings at the beginning and you choose easy, which makes no difference, and then apparently I'll just leave it off. You don't need to change it at all. But if you go to the shurikens and put it down to 0, why? I mean, that's quite a weird thing to have, isn't it? On a hard game, you can put it on super hard and no shurikens, so you've got no firepower, and put it on the hardest difficulty. Why you would want? I can't possibly believe that anyone's ever done that. But if you put it on 0 and leave it for about 15 seconds, you get a noise. I expect Chris will do the noise for us. And you then get infinite shurikens. You get a little infinity symbol.
I'm only saying this because when you get the crates look, the icon that comes out looks like a pair of scissors or something at one stage. Like extra throwing knives or shurikens, throwing
stars. That's the paper boss at the end of chapter 3 that you didn't get to.
No, okay.
It's the origami king origami. He's quite hard to defeat if you haven't got the scissors.
There's no randomness in those boxes, so all the loot crates.
Yeah, but don't you keep opening the same one that's got the bomb in it every time, even though it's not random?
Exactly.
Every time.
Exactly.
I'll open that crate, that'll have a heart in it. Oh no, it hasn't. Bang, dead.
Absolutely. So they are actually crates. So nowadays most games have loot crates, and it's a whole thing. Everyone knows. And normally there'll be a bit of variable reward, as they call it. In Shinobi, there's no such thing. So variable rewards are a way to help create a habit. So it's a bit more like a gambling, a fruit machine kind of mechanic. Whilst in Shinobi, it's you do open a crate, but it's always the same power up. And as Phil's just said, there's also sometimes sticks of dynamite which do damage to you. And I opened every single one of those every single time. It's like there's no randomness. It's going to be dynamite. I think I'll open it anyway. What was chapter 3 like?
Really easy.
I bet. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought.
No, it's not. I think actually producer John said it best. It sort of evens out. It becomes much more traditional sort of platforming. I'm just looking at the footage now. The first 2 levels, there's quite a lot of up and down the screen, like you've been saying about the logs. There's a lot of sort of usage of the entire environment of a 2D type game. So up, down, dropping down, climbing up, jumping up, getting to the top of the waterfall on the logs. There's a lot of depth as well as left and right in the game.
Do you get a new kind of power up which enables you to kill enemies who are just in front of you but below you? Because otherwise sometimes you get to a moment where you're on a ledge and there's an enemy not directly below you. If he's directly below, or even just directly below you, or just in front of you below you, there's no way. There isn't like a lean over and throw a star at the enemy's head. There's just no way to get them. You have to like jump up, do the somersault, and waste 6 throwing stars to kill that enemy.
You have to sort of use the spread. Yeah. I mean, you can kneel down and kick. Yeah. The level you're asking about chapter 3. Chapter 3 there is basically no up and down. It is just a straight left to right platform. But
Oh, that sounds
But
good.
the mechanic in it is that there's a wire fence. You're like at a base. So there's sort of buildings in the very distant parallax scroll sort of distance. Foreground, you've got two planes. You've got this fence. So you've got in front of the fence or behind the fence, and that's it. But because you've got enemies either side, and it's quite hard to tell whether they're in front or behind of the thing until they've shot you. And you've also got a flamethrower guy that comes along, and his flame travels sort of towards you, so you can be shooting at him, but he's miles away. But his flame still can still hit you, and the flames still stay and travel even when he's dead. So even if you shoot him, but he's shot his flame, it can still go towards you. So unfortunately, with that level, you have to have mastered the double jump, because you have to go from back to front on over this blooming fence. And what you're talking about with this not being able to get the enemies that are sort of in front of you and below, so behind a box, let's say,
Yeah.
there's loads of crates, and these guys are just there, snipers with their guns or with lobbing weapons, throwing them over the top of the crate. So you're trying to get towards that person, but they're throwing bombs towards you, very much like the Hammer Brothers in Mario. So they're moving around and throwing the hammers that are an arcing weapon. So yeah, they're really, really difficult. I know what you're saying, that there are some dogs that attack in this level as well.
Yeah.
Those you can get by kneeling down on the crate and kicking over the top of the crate, because a dog jumps up into your kick. But the blokes that are there lobbing the stuff at you, yeah, you basically have to time really well, either doing the double jump and doing a spread shot, or you go to the other side of the fence where they can't get you, walk behind them, jump back over the fence, and then get them. It's
Yeah.
very, very frustrating.
I was missing an extra button so that I could decide when to use the sword. Because the sword is only used if you're close enough to an enemy. And sometimes you'll throw, in my experience, a throwing style when I really wanted to use the sword. I thought it would have been nice if I could have jumped and then used the sword in midair, perhaps. Yeah, a few things like that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. When you say missing a button, you don't mean you missed a button. You'd like there to have been an extra button.
To have had an extra
yeah,
button.
So an extra attack. Yeah, I think I think there was 2 attack buttons, because this is pretty basic game, although it's complex in its design. The controls, yes, are fairly basic. You've got jump and attack, and that's it. The magic is separate, and you hardly use it. But the jump and attack is basically all you're using the entire game. So yeah, to have had a third attack, which, as you say, is your hand-to-hand weapon, would have made a big difference. Yeah, I agree. And yes, that would have been nice. And also, you'd still been able to use the magic, because you could press pause and use it, which you actually do anyway to choose the magic. You've got like 4 different magics. You have to pause it and move the cursor along, and then unpause it and go back and use the magic that you want to use. So they could have actually done it, I think, with the 3-button Mega Drive pad. You could have had 2 attacks and a jump. I agree.
Yeah. So have we ruined your childhood memory of Shinobi?
No, I enjoyed it a lot more. I think the reason I got further, Chris, is because I did play it a lot, and it is one of my favorite games. And no, I still do really like it. But actually, I would have to echo something that producer John said, because obviously he's not under these same tight restrictions that we're under, and he, I think, possibly played the game, I think, before we got around to playing it. Anyway, he did say that he got, I think you're saying he got to level 6, but that is still that thing of you die, or all your contingents are gone, all your lives are gone, that's it. He said, I'm not sure I'd want to go back there again. I'm not sure I'd want to go through level 1 to 6 again to get to that point, to start off where I was. That I get. I think the crux of this game and every game so far we've looked at, and sadly probably a majority of games from this era and before, so the 80s and the 90s, they're designed in this way, and also we have changed. We aren't the same person we were back then. We have not got the same level of patience, and we don't have to. We've mentioned this in the other podcast where you might have only had one game at Christmas and one game at your birthday, and that's all you had to play, and you would get good at this and you would play it and you would slog your way through it, and also you would be overjoyed playing this on the Mega Drive that Christmas. I'm sure producer John probably was, when it 1990 at Christmas, and you get this game. You don't have to wait 10 minutes for it to load. There's none of that mucking around, and give it its due. Even when you do die, you immediately start again. There's no load time at all. You are bang, you just press start, bang, bang, bang. It's probably 3 seconds and you're in, you're playing it again. That was a massive novelty. It's hard to explain that now. Perhaps actually if you've got some really massive game that you play on the PC, there probably is still loading times, even if they do hide it behind some cutscene or something to try and distract you from the fact there's a 5-minute load. We would have just had we would have had the time. Doing this podcast, we've done 3 or 4 games now. This is the first time in years that I've been forced to sit down and play a game for X amount of time, simply because A, we need to be able to talk about it, and B, I need to get the footage for the blooming video. I haven't done this for years with these sorts of games where I'm actually making a concerted effort to get somewhere this far in those games from those era. I play them for 10, 15 minutes, not hours, trying to get past the logs.
I'm still as bad as I ever was, I think, playing these games. I never think... Well, will I play it again? I'll probably load it again when my Sega Genesis arrives from Japan. That's on order. So I'll probably run that and see how it plays there. But for fun, no.
You don't have the same memory, though, do you? I think you said that. You said that earlier on. For me, it's very, very special, and that's why I would play it again, and I will play it again, because I do have such a good memory of it.
And you've mentioned Shadow Dancer.
Yeah, Shadow Dancer. Yeah.
Now I'm trying to think if John had that as well on the Mega Drive, and is it a big white dog?
Yeah, you've got the dog command, but it was also on the Master System, and you guys had a Master System, same as me.
Ooh,
yeah. I
wonder if it was on the Master System, then I would have perhaps have played it more. But no, I'm hopefully going to find some time and play play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I think that will be, I'm afraid to say, more fun than Shinobi.
I think very quickly, you're going to enjoy the Mega Drive Mini 2. We did tell people I'd give my thoughts on it. It's great. It's really good. Very good selection of games. It's a high quality machine. I found the emulation on it extremely good. There's lots of options on there. You can stretch the screen or have it on a sort of original format and the usual backgrounds and things like that if you want to. The controller is actually really good. As I said earlier on, I didn't like it back in the day, but actually it is quite nice. And it makes there is a big difference in playing the emulation work that I think it's M2 or M Squared have done and Sega have done on their own work, rather than just emulating stuff with ROMs. There is quite often a bit of a delay in things. I didn't notice any of this. It felt tight. I would say for a lot of people, if you've got a sort of passing interest and you don't want to get into the whole collecting thing, I would say something like the minis, including the Super Nintendo one as well, which I've got, they are a good way of playing lots of games genuinely playing them rather than ripping them off or downloading ROMs or whatever. They work really well. I can heartily recommend it. I think they're good value. And you've got the Mega CD games on there, which, again, you didn't get with the original Mega Drive Mini, which is why I didn't buy that one. So I highly recommend it. 9 stars out of 10.
Although, don't play... I'm looking forward to play Space Harrier.
Space Harrier 2 is on there, yeah.
Space Harrier 2. So, yeah, but I guess maybe we should do an episode talking about our memories of Space Harrier before playing Space Harrier 2.
Is that one we're going to look at? Oh, yes.
Well, I hope so, yeah, because that must have been a great game. I bet that wasn't difficult at all. And I probably played that on the Spectrum as well.
Yeah, I certainly. Well, that would have been the first one. Yeah, Space Harrier. Yes. It was amazing that it could actually manage it. But yeah,
I played that in the arcade as well. Talking of the future, what is the next game that we will cover?
Well, it's one of those sorts of things where we again, a bit, I suppose, like with Horace, we sort of when we were sort of talking about the Amiga, we were sort of listing off games we both remember from the Amiga. And I think Chris mentioned Bitmap Brothers, and I almost said it at exactly the same time. And then we sort of plumped for Speedball. So I think we'll have a look at Speedball. We could have picked so many others, couldn't we? I mean, Xenon 2, and is it Alien Breed? Was that one of theirs? And there's quite a few others.
Yeah. Speedball. That would be great. I bet that's not difficult.
No. But I think the one thing that I did sort of mention about that, I remember playing it with people. I mean, it is sort of, it's a sports game, so it's going to be weird doing this because we are just going to be playing on our own.
Yeah, well, save your memories for that episode.
Hello, Clive Sinclair here, all-round amazing guy and the inventor of the ZX Spectrum, after which this podcast is named. Yes, you're probably wondering why I'm not featuring in this episode. That's because the lads aren't talking about a Spectrum game. No, they're talking about one of those games by the clever Japanese. Although the microchips inside the cartridge, well, I invented those. Yes, I made them. They can't be copied, those games, so don't try copying them, okay? Only tapes, but no, don't try copying tapes, because only I'm allowed to do that, because I've got all the copyrights. Anyway, bye. Shinobi, I've completed it.
You can email us at hello@spectrumdays.com, and you can contact us on Twitter @SpectrumDaysPod. And you can also find us on YouTube just by looking up Spectrum Days.